have a cell phone, please either turn it off or silence it. Okay, today is Wednesday, December 5th, 2018. I'm calling the regular city commission meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Ide?
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Here.
And Mayor Holliday.
Here. Please stand and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I am going to make a couple of changes to the agenda for tonight. First off, we're going to
General business item 7A.
yes, 7A. So I'm going to move 7A up to the very front, which is 18-567, first reading of ordinance number 18-1027. Oh, I apologize, wrong line. 18-582, resolution 1845, naming Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. Today we're before you to make a formal recommendation to name the park currently known working title as Glen Oak Park and renaming it permanently as Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park. The process that has taken us to this point was a very thorough public engagement process. The park itself is 9.1 acres located in the Caulfield neighborhood on the intersection of Glen Oak Road and High School Avenue, right near the high school. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee met and put together an ad hoc naming committee in order to consider a naming process and to go through the steps of officially designating a name that we would bring forward to the commission for consideration. Over the last 6-7 months, the committee has met several times, included representatives of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, a representative of the Neighborhood Association, as well as representative of the City Commission. Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. During that process, we had over 400 names suggested for the name of the new park. We whittled that down to 4 names that went forward to a public vote. Of those 4 names, we had over 8,500 individuals vote for a name of the park. The naming committee considered those numbers. Over 90% voted for Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park. Presented a recommendation to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee in our October meeting, and the wider body of Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee made a formal recommendation at our October meeting to move forward for consideration Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park. I would like to call out Tyrone is as a native Oregonian, went to Oregon City High School, graduated, was a decorated wrestler when he graduated from Oregon City, went on to serve as a Navy SEAL, decorated, served several tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, served for the CIA in security detail, and gave his life in service to our country. We've had, again, overwhelming support at all levels through the process for this name, and we fully recommend the name Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park as a designation for this park. With that, I'll open it up to any conversation or questions.
And I apologize, I have 2 things to add. We did have a citizen comment that came in to be part of the record from Sean Datchler. And then I also wanted to note a scrivener's error in the 5th whereas on the resolution itself. It had December 7th, 2017, and that should actually be stated as October 25th, 2018.
Oh, my copy is correct.
Yes, your copy is correct.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the resolution number 18-45, naming the Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Nancy, Frank, you got anything? Hearing none, we'll...
No.
Okay, then we'll move on. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg. Aye. Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ide, and Mayor Holliday.
Aye. So for those of you in the audience, I have a commissioner in Cabo and a commissioner in Orlando, Florida, so there's about a 7-second time delay, so which is why we have this problem. So motion passes. I will sign the resolution and pass this off to the city attorney to sign after I read it. It says, resolution naming Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park. Whereas the 9.1 acre undeveloped city park located at Glen Oak Road and High School Avenue in Oregon City is commonly referred to as Glen Oak Park. And whereas the city of Oregon City has an official policy for naming or changing the names of parks, recreation, and cemetery facilities, which prescribes the process by which the city shall consider adopting a permanent name of a park. And whereas in following this policy, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee designed an ad hoc park naming committee to consider this issue. And whereas after a thorough public engagement process, the Park Naming Committee and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee considered various proposed names to recognize the importance of the park and its impact on the community. And whereas at its October 25th, 2018 meeting, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee approved a motion by unanimous vote to recommend to the City Commission to name the undeveloped park as Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park in honor of the native Oregonian who was a 1989 graduate of Oregon City High School, a decorated Navy SEAL who gave his life in service to his country in 2012 while working for the CIA. And whereas the Oregon City Commission has reviewed the background information related to this recommendation by the Oregon City Parks and Recreation Committee, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, now therefore Oregon City resolves as follows. The City Commission of the City of Oregon City hereby names the park, commonly known as Glen Oak Park, the Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park, and this resolution becomes effective immediately upon adoption. Approved and adopted at a regular meeting of the City Commission held on this 5th day of December 2018 by my hand, Dan Holliday, Mayor. And I believe there's a family member that wants to come up and say something.
Correct. We have Cheryl Bennett, his mother, as well as representatives of the nonprofit Wrestling Foundation in his name.
So you can just sit right there.
If you'd have a seat so that we can hear you on the television.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm very deeply touched.
If you could state your name and city of residence for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Cheryl Croft Bennett, and I reside in Oregon City, Oregon.
Thank you.
Where I've resided for 33 years. In the same house, by the way. I'm deeply touched by the honor that has been bestowed upon my son to have this wonderful piece of acreage named after him that I'm sure will be enjoyed by many families, children and parents. It's just, I'm so grateful and I'm humbled, really humbled by this gesture. The state of Oregon in dedicating the Memorial Highway sign on 213, and now this wonderful act of kindness and support by the people of Clackamas County and across the nation for those who voted is wonderful beyond words. And it is my hope that this park will be enjoyed by all, and that visitors who come and see the story, Tyrone's story of heroism, will appreciate it as much as the rest of us do here locally. And you have my gratitude and my thanks for all your hard work for bringing this to fruition, because I know there was a lot of hard work in going through those proverbial hoops that you have to get through. So, and I'd like to introduce we have 10 directors on our foundation. Roger Rowland, who was Tyrone's wrestling coach at Oregon City High School. So he has, he knew, past tense is difficult at times still. He knew my son very, very well. Coach Doug Samaron from West Lynn also knew Tyrone and likes to say that he actually got his hands on Tyrone a few times on the mat.
Oh,
And Kurt Klebaum, who got off work and rushed over here. Tyrone's, can I call you a wingman from high school? Yeah, they had been friends for, well, obviously right up until. So Kirk is here, and DJ Ruger, past post commander of the VFW Hall here, who has been very instrumental in supporting all things Tyrone. And I greatly appreciate his support and all of his connections. We've also worked on putting on the Patriot Day Remembrance, which maybe some of you are familiar with or have attended. And we'll do so again next year, where we will salute law enforcement. So thank you. Just thank you so much.
So we're going to get up and get a picture in his second, but as an Army veteran, I want to say how sorry I am and how much the country appreciates the sacrifice that you and your family have made.
Thank you.
and I think that goes with all of us too here, Ms. Bennett, that obviously sorry for your loss, but you look at the support around here and what's become of this, and you're right, thinking about all the kids that are going to have a great park to go play in. It's going to be great, and I'd like to thank Mr. Lewis for the process that he went through to get this all done. So then thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to all of you.
Okay, so we have the actual resolution that we are presenting to you that's been signed by me, and I think.
Go ahead and stay. If you guys all want to gather around behind, we'll get a nice photo of you as well.
In the back. Can you see in there? I'm good.
Ready. Thank you.
Okay, so the next rearrangement of the agenda, given the size and scope of, I gotta find it on my agenda again,
6A.
the ordinance 18-1009, Development Code Amendments, including equitable housing and planning file, LE 18-00001. What we are planning on doing tonight is to open the public hearing, take testimony from those in the audience who wish to testify, give Commissioner Shaw and Commissioner Mengelberg the opportunity to weigh in on any pieces of that they wish to speak on. And then once that's over, we'll make a decision about what we're going to do moving forward. So I'm going to ask the planning director, Ms. Turway, to give us the staff report or an abbreviated staff report, and then I'll open the public hearing.
Thank you very much. This proposal includes a variety of code amendments. They originally came to us through comments that the City Commission heard from the public for people who are having trouble finding a place to rent or purchase a house. From that, it became a City Commission goal to look at housing options in Oregon City and to remove barriers and provide incentives. The city then received a $100,000 grant from Metro to do a project and has been working for more than a year or year and a half with an advisory committee to do that. And with that, we have some recommendations which broadly include housing and a couple others which are not housing related as well. Pete Walter, a planner here with the city, will give you a little bit more information.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We have in the audience this evening 4 members of the Planning Commission who worked very hard on this proposal. As Laura mentioned, this includes recommendations.
Geez, hang on one second. Hey, Nancy, Frank, can you guys mute your end, please? All right.
Okay.
I am muted, so I don't know what the noise is.
That was probably Frank.
This includes recommendations to remove code barriers to equitable housing, clarification of standards and procedures, and other amendments that were identified through the public hearing process. This is an overview of how many meetings we've had to date. There will have been approximately 50 meetings or opportunities for the public to provide input on the project. And as a consequence, the code amendments reflect a lot of that input. As you can see here, we've provided a public comment and issue summary matrix that that is fairly up to date. We do have some additional public comments that are being entered into the record tonight. So the proposed amendments, the current version, which is dated November 26, is redlined by chapter. It's online for folks that want to look at it. There's both a high-level summary and a detailed summary. And as I mentioned, all of the public comments and the issues have been summarized as well. And staff's recommendation is one of 3. The commission can either continue this into January, date certain, January 8th for a work session, or we can continue to a public hearing on January 16th. Or you can approve the first reading this evening if you're satisfied after discussion. Public comments that we've received after the packet was published include a letter from Rick Givens, planning consultant, concerning a couple of items in the code, the lot size reduction proposal, and some of the aspects of applications for preliminary plats. We also have a letter from Craig and Debbie DeRusha with respect to the 20-year age limitation for internal conversions, as well as the owner occupancy requirement for accessory dwelling units. And a letter from Rosalie Nowak, who couldn't be here this evening. She's a member of our project advisory team, and she's recommending approval of the code amendments as well as some other amendments or other issues to address. And in your packet, one of the last things that we received before the packet went out is a letter from Clackamas Community College signed by Chris Broner, board chair, with respect to the I institutional district and their request that they be permitted to have food carts on campus as a permitted use, rather than right now it's considered, it is proposed to be a prohibited use in the I institutional zone. And the letter says if we were not to include it in the entire institutional zone, to carve out a special provision for Clackamas Community College. So, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Hearing none, I will open the public hearing. Do we have, I'm in the wrong screen here. So I've got at least 3 people here.
You have lots.
What?
You have quite a few speakers.
Okay. So Denise, are you speaking on behalf of the Planning Commission?
Yes.
And then you're going to speak on behalf of yourself?
Later.
Okay, because I have you side by side here. So why don't you bring up Denise McGriff and Mike Mitchell?
I'd like a couple of other planning commissioners to come up with me.
Okay,
We're testifying as a commission.
all right.
Mr. Mahoney, you want to join us?
There's 2 seats up there.
I can make room. Good evening, Denise McGriff, and I just realized after hearing Mrs. Bennett speak that I'm a 30-year resident of Oregon City, which is kind of surprising considering I'm a military brat. And with me this evening are Bob Mahoney, Damon Mabey, and also Commissioner Giles back there, and we are presenting to you on behalf of the Oregon City Planning Commission. Before we start, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the staff for going through, this is one of the last drafts, all of this with us and persevering through thick and thin. And thank you both, Pete and Laura, and the other commissioners who are not present. We did a lot of work on behalf of our community. You have in your packet a memorandum from us regarding some recommendations that we would like to put forward to you and consider. Obviously, the very first one that we feel is very significant is supporting affordable housing units. We had a considerable amount of discussion, and there was a considerable amount of testimony in addition to informal contacts by members of the public who asked us, that's a great idea, how are you going to make it work? Because people will build what they want to build. We feel very strongly that we need to look at providing some property tax exemptions, working with our partners at the county, possibly looking at making reductions in the SDC fees for accessory dwelling units or new multiple unit housing so that there is an incentive. We would definitely like to see the city look into and establish a city bond measure similar to the one that Metro just passed that would help here in Oregon City. And also look at requiring that any new multiple family dwelling units have some portion of it be affordable so that it can be carved out. There's a lot of mixed income apartment complexes in the Portland metro area, and I think that would be great if we could have a few ourselves. Maybe also looking at creating a locally funded rent voucher system. We also want to see workforce housing projects included in urban renewal projects, and maybe also the use of other capital improvement funds to help pay for infrastructure that's needed to serve workforce housing. That is probably one of the biggest unmet needs we have in the Portland metropolitan area. People who are, they call it the missing middle, but it's people who are nurses, teachers, doctors. There are some other programs that staff told us about, and I just recently found out about one that a relative of mine had maybe taken advantage of. They're a teacher. And the city that they work in provides a program to help teachers buy homes. I'm not saying that we would go to that distance, but that is an idea that's great, that's out there. In addition, this will be a second part of our recommendation and our update report, the Oregon City Comprehensive Plan. And I'm going to turn this part over to my fellow Commissioner Bob Mahoney, who was our strongest advocate, and I support his request.
I think one of the most important documents in a city, other than the charter itself, is its comprehensive plan and all the other associated documents that go with it, like capital improvements and things of that nature, traffic. Within the next couple of years, at least 2, if not 3, maybe 4, the update of the comprehensive plan going into an era which I consider to be convulsive. We're in a worldwide dilemma in terms of how to provide public services to people. The tsunami is about to hit us in terms of housing and economic development. Cities have got to respond early on in terms of how they're going to commit public services to a need, a devastating need, if you will, for the homeless, for the future generations of how we use our capacity to provide services to the public, and it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost a lot of initiative. It's going to cost a lot of open-minded thinking outside the envelope. It's a new world in terms of limited resources. We've got to get on top of this. This is a serious, serious public issue.
So Bob, our recommendation is that we encourage the City Commission to ensure that there's adequate funding in the upcoming budget biennium so that the comprehensive plan can be updated.
Yeah, if you have anything in front of you for the immediate future, it's that budgeting for the comprehensive plan update. It's going to take at least $150,000, maybe $200,000 for consultants and time spent in kind on the staff, And this is a very important document. It's going to save money, it's going to provide services. I could go on, and
We've got more stuff.
I'm not. I'm just going to leave it with that and turn it back over to my colleagues here.
Okay, so you guys have used your 5 minutes. If you can,
We're wrapping it up. This is important. This is really important.
and
We
so is-
understand.
and
We
so is
understand.
time with me.
We understand.
So real quick, Damon, maybe Oregon City. We think that you should move forward with actually zoning manufactured home parks as their own zone. That gives them a lot of additional protections. It is the essence of affordable housing. It's that stepping stone that, when people, it's their first single-family home with their first picket fence. Additionally, we think that along with the comprehensive plan, the urban growth management agreement with Clackamas County should be updated. It's multiple decades old, it's from last millennium.
1990.
So it's time to be looking at that and what sort of integration can be done with that. And then the last item is the whole short-term vacation rental, Airbnb, whatever you want to call it, whatever it'll be next month. But we don't have a good handle on that, and for people to try to do it right, it's just prohibitively expensive. And so under the current rules, so we think you need to look at those rules and decide where you're going to go with that.
Maybe that's a job for the next planning commission. In our annual report, we're going to get more into detail on tree mitigation and draft regulations for tree removal prior to annexation, but we'll save that for our yearly update. So we hope that you will consider some of our ideas, and we'll be happy to come back up if you have any specific questions about what our intent was in terms of the document, like you saw the list of meetings. We hope we ironed out most of the big problems for you and made a recommendation for your consideration.
And just real quick on a couple of the items that were brought up.
Right.
The owner occupancy for ADUs, there was a miscommunication. We did not recommend owner occupancy. So that's one item. And then the other one is about food carts and institutional. We tried to put it in a lot of places. We were basically told, dial it down. We don't have a problem with food carts in the institutional. It just didn't reach our plate, so to speak.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
Okay.
we wouldn't support carving out something especially for the college. If we're going to have them, we should look
Yeah.
at it comprehensively rather than piecemealing it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next we have Mike Mitchell and Debbie DeRusha.
Mike Mitchell, I'm an Oregon City resident. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'll start. I want to compliment city planning staff and the Planning Commission and the Equitable Housing Task Force on all the hours that were spent on this. And I think this is a great first step. I think, as Ms. McGriff said, this is not the end. It's going to take incentives. It's going to take every organization that we can get to cooperate to really make a dent in this. But this is a great first start. What I'm concerned about is mission creep. This started out as equitable housing, and then a large number of code cleanup kind of things were added, which is probably fine. But then there were some topics put in here that honestly I don't think belong and I'm concerned about. And the three in particular is tree protections, food carts, and transitional shelters. And the reason I'm concerned, even though, as Mr. Walter showed you, the public process that went behind this was very robust, but it was always couched in the terms and advertised as equitable housing. And I think that there are a number of individuals and groups in the city with opinions on all sides of those three issues that really didn't know that those topics would be part of something that was advertised as code revisions. So I would encourage you, I know that I don't think there's any way you're going to chew through this whole thing tonight. And I think there's enough here just on the main topic of equitable housing. So what I'm suggesting to you tonight is that you carve out those sections related to tree protections, food carts, and transitional shelters, send those back to city staff, send those back to the next planning commission so that they can get the kind of public input and a full process that I think those topics deserve. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Hi, Debbie DeRusha. I live in Oregon City. First, I just wanted to thank all of you on the commission for the enormous amount of work that you guys do for the city, and it's very appreciated. And especially Mr. Shaw and Ms. Mengelberg, appreciate all your work and wish you good luck as you move on, and we'll miss you, okay? So can I assume that you have what I've already submitted?
Yes.
Okay,
I think all of us except for maybe Commissioner O'Donnell has
Okay.
been either in a flight or at a conference all
okay.
day.
Well, I just had a couple of comments that I wanted to add to that I didn't have a chance to do because I had subsequent conversations with Laura Turway that gave me some other thoughts that I wanted to add to what I wrote. Two topics I wrote on was limiting the internal conversion age to 20 years and the owner occupancy of the ADUs. And I think by doing both of those things, we leave opportunities on the table for a number of other scenarios. The older house, these are the things that I wanted to add. Houses older than 20 years old, if you want to do internal conversions, they can be really expensive. You guys probably realize that. I listed out a number of things in my writing, and what I left out was, because we happened to look at one, my husband and I looked at one, these older houses, a lot of them need street improvements. And so in addition to everything else that you have to do to make that house a 2-family or a 3-family or a 4-family, you have that. I understand, I'm not an expert at this, but what I understood Laura to say was that there's SD fees associated with doing this internal conversion, and that if you paid SDC fees for the original house, then you can get credit for those SDCs on whatever the cost would be in doing the conversion. Two things about that. What if the house never paid SDC fees, number one? And number two, the SDC fees, I think, need to have some inflation consideration if you're going to give credit for that. And then I also found out that there's consideration, I'm not sure that it's in the code, there's consideration that there's going to be a disincentive for folks who tear houses down.
You're out of time.
Instead. Okay, so those are my things to add.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Next, Damon Mavey and Denise McGriff.
I just had to do a thing for it, so,
You're done?
yeah.
Okay. Then Denise McGriff and Mr. Gifford.
Thank you again. Denise McGriff, and I live here in Oregon City, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. As a participant in the equitable housing process, both as a member of the project advisory team, the public advisory team, and also in my role as a planning commissioner, I was able to do some observations. So I want to again emphasize that the process was comprehensive, and it met the letter of the law in terms of meeting. But I would agree with Mike Mitchell in the fact that anytime I had a discussion with a member of the public about what this equitable housing was about, you would get sort of the glazed look in the eyes, and then they would just completely kind of turn off because I was trying to explain, here's the different parts we're doing. It was very complex, as you are very aware. And I think most of the people in the community were on overload once we started getting into it, which is why we didn't have a whole lot of people come in about specific issues. I think that people, as Mike, and I agree with everything he said in terms of carving out some of the things that need to have further community discussion. I think there's a way to have a dialogue with the public in some forums that are not so public testifying type things, but more of a discussion like, what do you think? How should we approach this? How should we look at it? I know that the staff did a whole lot of work on this, but Mike and I agree that breaking this down into more digestible parts and taking some of the parts out, even the ones that Mike suggested, might be better in the long run from our community. In a lot of ways, citizen involvement takes time, but in every instance in Oregon City where we've taken more time, we have come up with a project that is stellar, that is fantastic, and the public feels like many of their needs were met and they were heard. So that is all I want to suggest, and I want to thank you again for all your work on this, as well as the Planning Commission's work on it.
Thank you. Mr. Gifford?
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, my name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City. I want to echo Ms. DeRusha's comments about thanking the lame ducks here. So appreciate all the years of hard work that you've done. Quack, quack.
That's it, yeah.
The only, this is an enormous project. I did read all of the 320-page summary. Well, except the duplicate pages, I didn't quite figure that part out. But the one piece that I want to talk about that was kind of puzzling to me is this for the internal conversions, this 20-year limitation. It seems to me as though the purpose of that was to preserve the value of newer homes. I wasn't quite sure why there was a limit on it at all. And if there was going to be a limit, I just wanted to suggest something. What if you took a look at the neighborhood or the development in which the conversion wants to take place, and you said you can have no more than X percentage of the homes in that development to be able to have internal conversions. That would alleviate people's fears of, oh, all of my neighbors are going to turn into triplexes, you know, and I don't want to run a bunch of triplexes. But there's no provision against that other than the age, which means like, jeepers, you're just going to have the historic homes or over the 20-year-old homes that could be converted. But it seemed to me as though if there's going to be a limitation on conversions, why not do it as a percentage of that particular neighborhood rather than the age of the building? That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Next up, Tom Guile and Rick Givens. You boys play nice.
I'll try.
We're friends. You go first.
Okay. Tom Guile, Oregon City resident. Obviously, I'm a member of the Planning Commission, and I'm here on my own. We spent a lot of time, as I said up there, 6 meetings throughout the summer, 3 months worth. We went through stacks of paper. I mean, I just recycled it recently. I mean, it was about 7 inches of paper. Some of us, even the commission, didn't even understand everything. And thank God we had Denise and Damon to go through line by line by line and keep requesting of poor Laura to bring back a red line one so we can see what's going on here. But I didn't plan what I was going to say tonight, but I think a lot of the previous speakers have said it best. Mike Mitchell talked about equitable housing, Debbie DeRusha, what kind of other topics are in the code, and even William Gifford, there's lots of what ifs. So what I was thinking is every time, as some of you know, there's a chit chat line with 20,000 some people on it. I've got another one. Everybody didn't understand everything that was going into this. No matter how much we publicized it publicly, people, it was so much for them to understand and take in that a lot of people just didn't show up. They were overwhelmed. Is this about affordable housing? Is it about food carts? And I think that you need to take some more time with this. I really would like to encourage you not to take this on tonight until it's really been studied and separated out. This is about affordable housing. This is about trees. This is about carts. But as a planning commission for 6 years, I was overwhelmed by it. And I meant, when it came to a vote, my plan was to vote no, because it was too much to undertake and too much to pass on to you. However, when it came to vote, I didn't understand at the time what we were voting on, and I was going to vote no, and I accidentally voted yes, because I thought it was just on a 2-page item there. The problem is that there's so much in there. I don't know how any of you could read it without having to wear strong glasses, because it's all the words in there. It's a lot of information. I encourage you now to just postpone this decision on this until the new year, and then take it piece by piece and look at it individually. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Givens?
Good evening, Mayor Holliday and Commissioners. You have my letter. I won't go too much into it beyond that, except to say that 2 points that I did want to address were the requirement that preliminary plats be prepared by surveyors. My comments are, the surveyors don't do that typically. Maybe a few of them around who've learned the trade, but land planners are kind of a unique breed, generalists. And I talked to James Brown at Centerline Concepts. I don't even have anyone on my staff who would know how to do planning stuff. It's just not what they do. I'd recommend you just ask for the submission of an existing conditions map prepared by a surveyor, and let the planning professionals do the preliminary plan. The main thing I want to talk about tonight, though, is the flexibility that's available in your current code and is proposed to be reduced under the ordinance amendment that came out of the Planning Commission. I run into this time and time again as we look at infill type of lots. It's nearly impossible not to find a site where you have to go around a house, or there's, wetlands or something in a bad place, and you end up with a larger lot here and you need to make a smaller lot there in order to average that out. I submitted an example of that of the Parker Knoll subdivision, and you can see that in there. That's a very typical kind of situation. I know the Planning Commission has concerns about the impacts of smaller lots in neighborhoods, but I think there are better ways to deal with that than the way that's proposed here. You can require buffering of smaller lots that are on the perimeter of the project, as an example, or any number of things can be done. But I would point out that it's going to cost density, and that's directly opposite of what you're trying to do with this whole amendment project, was to provide more affordable housing in the city, and making reductions in number of lots you can get out of a project can have the direct opposite effect. The requirement that no more than 25% of the lots be reduced would out and out deny the ability to use any flexibility for partitions, as an example. And partitions are one of the primaries where you need the flexibility. So I'd ask that you rethink that, perhaps look at adding some protections for flexible lots, but allow it to continue as it has for a long time in the city.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
A lot to rethink.
And then last but certainly not least, Bob Mahoney.
Bob Mahoney, Oregon City. This next coming year will be my 8th year on the Planning Commission.
My condolences.
If I survive. The one thing that has impressed me in the 25 years that I've practiced in this field, and this 8 years, is how we are so successful in just strangling the heck out of things. We make it so complex that we need a $400 an hour professional land use attorney to represent the simplest of things. And then we talk it to death. We strangle ourselves, and we're open for business, for growth. We're all citizens here. When we come through those city hall doors, we expect service in a very simple, good faith manner. Whatever ordinances we develop for the public, keep it simple so that access to public services is available. Access, transparency. we talk about transparency, then we turn around and we pass an ordinance that takes a Kentucky lawyer to interpret. So whatever we do with the comp plan, whatever we do with this equitable housing, and any ordinance that has to do with land use and obtaining a building permit, keep it accessible to the general public so that they can understand the ordinances and the standards, and we don't make it so complicated that say, oh, what the heck, I'm either going to move or I'm just not going to try. So I think you all understand my message. You know, it just one ordinance after another ordinance and another person. Oh, we can't breathe. You know? And it applies to land use more than anything. We all understand getting pulled over for a traffic ticket. That we understand. Getting a building permit, forget it.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Anybody else? Okay, then I will close the public portion of the hearing. And contrary to what my usual pattern is, I'm going to go first on this one. This is, as we saw in the details previously, this has gone on for quite some time. I think the PAT met for over a year. And then, you know, it's been through several months of planning commission work sessions and hearings. And in the intervening time, we've had an election and we have 2 new commissioners coming on board in January. And so my intention tonight is to give Commissioner Shaw and Commissioner Mengelberg their opportunity to make whatever comments, concerns, questions that they have. And then hopefully we will push this off to a date certain of the, what is it, the 19th?
January 16th?
January 16th meeting. And at that point, my intention is to take this in a series of meetings, one chapter at a time, so that we have the opportunity as a commission to discuss and to give staff feedback and for staff to give us feedback. Rather than, it's the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? You eat him one bite at a time. And I think this is an elephant. So we're going to have to take our time and really look at each of these individual components chapter by chapter, rather than trying to attempt to read all of this stuff. I read it all. I certainly have a whole bunch of questions, but we could spend until 11 o'clock tonight, probably not get through the first chapter. That is my intention, and I will turn it over to either one of you who wishes to go first. Commissioner Mengelberg?
Okay. First, I want to say thank you very much to the staff and to the Planning Commission for going through an awful lot of very detailed technical information. And all in all, I think I maybe have 8 comments, so that's a testament to the good work and the amount of digestion and conversation and good thought that's gone into this. So I guess this is my chance, so I'll go through. On 160825, I'm responding to the letter from ICON about the existing conditions map and the need for the surveyor. And I would propose that we reword it to honor that suggestion and add an A1 that said, which is a new thing that says an existing conditions map prepared by a surveyor, and then A2, a site plan, and continue on as it's written. On 160865, the lot size reduction, the city commission deliberated for a long time, and we made a decision that it should be 20%. And I would recommend that this commission and the future commission stay with that recommendation to provide maximum flexibility for how lots can lay out, as long as the overall goal for the lot size in that zone is met, taking into account topography and power lines and whatever else.
Can I interrupt you for just 1 second? Because I want to ask Ms. Turway a question. Why, after the city commission made a decision on that, did it come back to us in a form other than what the city commission said?
When the city commission made a decision on lot averaging, they also recommended that it be reviewed by the advisory committee for equitable housing. So it went to them as well, and then it went to the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And my purpose for recommending staying with the 20% versus the 10% that's now being proposed is that it supports the intention of the comprehensive plan to provide a variety of housing types to be able to maximize development opportunity. And so for all the reasons that we approved it the first time, I would encourage that we stick with that. On 17-12-025, high-density residential district conditional uses, the final text says allow live-work units, and I think that's great. We should be encouraging live-work, and so I just wanted to support that. And that's on page 118. On page 132, 17-20-010, about accessory dwelling units. In response to testimony we've heard today and the testimony from the Planning Commission, I think we need to honor and eliminate the property owner requirement. And the way to do that would be just to eliminate D6 altogether, and that accomplishes that. On page 136, 17-20-030 on internal conversions. I'm also convinced by the testimony we heard today that there shouldn't be a 20-year limit. We want to encourage flexibility. We want to encourage providing affordable housings. One recommendation was 5 years, but I'd be in favor of eliminating it altogether depending on the discussion of the commission. And then on 17-34-060D, which is the mixed-use downtown dimensional standards, it has to do with the varying height standards in the downtown core. I strongly believe it should be 75 feet everywhere. It's our regional center. It's where high-density development is supposed to be, to have a patchwork of various heights according to whether it's next to a house or whatever. It doesn't make sense to me, so I would recommend keeping it at 75 feet, wherever it is within that zone. And then on, this is my own addition concerning outdoor lighting. This is 17-62-065. I'd like to add an aspirational goal, and that is about encouraging energy efficiency. So I would word it, and I've given this to Ms. Turway already. Add an addition, number 6, encourage the use of energy efficient lighting such as LED or solar to reduce ongoing electrical demand and operating costs. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Shaw?
Kind of bear with me when I'll get to my point here. Well, I only have one.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Take as much time as you need.
We're not covered quite a bit of it here, so, I think I am with everybody in this room. We kind of value our farm and forest land, and thank God we have an urban growth boundary to protect us for that. So I'm looking for density when we can, so we don't have to move that boundary until we have to. So that means our downtown, higher density downtown, this new apartment project at the Cove, a great example of how this should be going on. And then we have a couple of projects that have been bantered about for the downtown area for high density. And so when the lot averaging or lot reduction language got put back in, as you know, I spoke against that before, and I'm still there, just because of the density factor. And I think that having multiple size lots in an area is maybe a testament to what we're trying to accomplish here with our housing units and things. So I'd rather keep the lot averaging language as it was in the beginning. It's a great tool that our planning department has used for years. And I know we had one subdivision come through that kind of raised this to the point that it got to be controversial, but it worked up until then. And so I'm really looking at trying to keep the density as much as comfortable in town here before we have to move that urban growth boundary. But also, and I've said this before, Thank you, Planning Commission. You guys, as usual, always do the heavy lifting for us. And there it is right there. And that's a good example of right there for us. But also our planning department. You guys, a lot of work here, but you're always doing a lot of work. So thank you for all your efforts on this too. So thanks.
Okay. So Commissioner O'Donnell, Commissioner Ide, do you have anything to say, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I don't have any, I'm going to reserve my comments for a later time, and I would like to make a motion if I could,
Okay, go ahead.
and which would be, I move to continue planning file LEG 18-0001 to the January 16, 2009 City Commission meeting.
2019.
2019. Okay, we got
Did I
that.
say 18?
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg. Aye. Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ide,
Aye.
Mayor Holliday.
Aye, motion carries. So I believe that Commissioner O'Donnell is going to leave us at this point. Is that right, Commissioner?
I'm sorry.
You're dropping off the call now, right?
Yes, sir, I am. It's approaching 11 o'clock back here.
Yeah.
Long day.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you calling in.
Can I ask one quick clarifying question about
Sure.
the expectations for January? Do you want us then to come in with one chapter at a time starting in January? Or what would you like us to bring to you in January? We can sort out just the issues that were identified tonight, or we can start the chapter by chapter. I just want to make sure that I provide you what you need.
I prefer we start chapter by chapter and just work through it. That puts it in small enough bites that we can, spend an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and then in the next meeting, we can do the same thing, and we can just kind of nibble away at this thing until it's done, rather than try to have like a one-day Saturday meeting or something else.
Well, and it might be that it's not per se chapter by chapter, but topic by topic, because some of the chapters overlap. So, I think you might take that.
Well, you guys can
type.
split it up however you think is most convenient, okay?
Thank you.
All right. So, where are we here? My gosh. So I guess we're going to go back to the two updates. One from the Natural Resources Committee annual update. Mayor Neely.
Thank you, Commissioners and the Mayor. I'm the Chair of the Natural Resource Committee, and I don't know if you've gotten the write-up that I did. Okay, I'll just go through it quickly then. We have issues with that have come up. The natural resource overlay that we operate under went through the process in the comprehensive plan, and it needs updating. My understanding is the planning department sought some opportunities to review and update the natural resource overlay district overlays, but has not been successful. At the last year when we made a presentation, we requested that there be some code changes that would enable us to establish temporary wetland area overlays when a new delineation has been made or a previous overlay was found to be in error, where the permanent overlay could be established later when resources are available to determine its appropriate boundaries. The heritage tree designation, the original code was fairly simple, and now the code requires an arborist to determine whether or not a tree is diseased or, in fact, is a danger. This is costly to an individual that wants to put in a heritage tree request, and I don't think we've had one since that change was made. we would like to suggest that the city consider bringing in a part-time arborist to assist in this effort, as well as to deal with the other tree issues on city property and public right-of-ways. To offset the cost of the arborist, consideration should also be given to revise our code back to what it was, not requiring such a detailed arborist study. The owner, if he finds his heritage tree is diseased or is unsafe, he's permitted to take it down. So that's really not a barrier. The other thing, and I think you have it on your monitors, I see it up above there, is that we've got there a legend for the various streams in Oregon City, the ones that are named and the ones that are unnamed. These are the actual streams we have in Oregon City. The blue ones are the ones that have names. The orange ones do not. Now, the Natural Resource, the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council is putting signs on some of these streams with the help of Public Works, and our Natural Resource Committee would like to work with them in terms of having some kind of a process to actually name some of these unnamed streams. We suggest a procedure be developed that include public participation, perhaps through neighborhood associations, with the selections of name going through a process similar to the naming of parks. We also last year, we're talking about a geological designation of Waterboard Park as a geologically significant area. We contacted Professor Burns, who's Portland State's Professor Emeritus and a former director of Portland State's Department of Geology, and he recommended contacting the state geologist responsible for the State Geological Survey, that's Dogami, and to the Ice Age Floods Institute to see if such a designation is possible. And we're requesting from the City Commission the right for us to proceed with that process, and then if that process we're able to go through that process, to have the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee consider it and have it come to the City Commission to propose such a designation. It's part of the same process that created the falls, the Willamette Narrows, and it'd be nice to have that kind of recognition. Turning my page here. The next item actually refers to something that the Planning Commission presentation I think will be making, and that's recommending code development amendments dealing with tree removal prior to annexation and development proposals. The Natural Resource Committee would support that. We've had several presentations that were presented through the year. I've put that in the report you have to me. I'd like to talk about the last three: the Audubon Society of Portland and the Columbia River Land Trust Backyard Habitat certification program. It's the Columbia River Land Trust. It's not the Columbia Land River Trust. Sorry for the miswrite there. They have a certification that I would like somehow to get that information out to Oregon City. They made a presentation to us. They have three different certifications. The silver, gold, and platinum. And the silver is not very arduous. If you have essentially more than 5% of your plantings are native plants, you can get that certification. There are a few other things too. And I'd like to get that information in some way through the city out to the property owners that this is a program that exists. We have the presentation on the Myers Road extension tree removal. That road would go through a white oak grove. And of course, there would be mitigation. We're recommending that mitigation be done with white oak plantings. And then just to comment on the Friends of Tree Planting that just took place last Saturday. It is the largest number of participations we've had since the program started in 2015. approximately 130 trees, probably more than. They had 129, but they found out they forgot to bring in some of the trees, so I think it's going to be more than 130 were done. And the previous years, it has been less than 100, so it's a very popular thing, and the interest in it is growing. Thank you for the city and its mitigation funds being used for this purpose. There's a couple of other things that we've requested that have come before us. We requested that a presentation for an ADROD application for a private dock easement at First Avenue between Jerome and Miller Streets come before the Natural Resource Committee, and it did so. The application is now before the Planning Commission as part of a continuation. And the Natural Resource Committee also requested a presentation on the Cove project, which is this presentation is tentatively scheduled for the next meeting. The other thing is that there is no requirement, and I'm not suggesting it should be a requirement for developers that are applicants coming in for issues dealing with the natural resource overlays, make a presentation to the Oregon City, but we are asking for a code amendment that recommends, that doesn't require, recommends applicants for developments involving NRODs to make a presentation to the Natural Resource Committee. And that ends my presentation.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Questions?
Thank you, Doug. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, 18-571 Planning Commission Annual Update.
Denise McGriff, representing the Planning Commission, and with me is my colleague and fellow Planning Commissioner Damon Mabey, and in the audience is Commissioner Tom Guile, and Commissioner Mahoney had to leave. You guys did you show the chart and all of that yet? You were gonna show the chart of the meetings? No, she's looking at me like, anyway.
She's not catching what you're pitching.
There is no chart of a meeting.
Anyway, well, when we had our last report by the planning department, they were showing us a chart that they had put up on the screen that showed the number of meetings that we'd had this year. And obviously, as you are aware, they were considerable, but I will have to say on behalf of our commission, it's been our pleasure. We are here to represent the community, and we do whatever it takes. So as you know, over the last year, we have identified a number of topics and projects that we'd like to bring forward to you for your consideration. And you already heard from Commissioner Mahoney about the updating of the comprehensive plan, and amending that statement by him is that one of the things that we talked about prior to starting the Equitable Housing Project was the need for a comprehensive housing inventory. We're kind of doing it a little bit backwards. We have the report, and we don't have the inventory information. We do need to know what we have in our community, and I think you alluded to it, Commissioner Shaw, about what we needed to look at in terms of where the housing is, what the type of housing is, what are we really doing in terms of meeting the need. You know, does this neighborhood need this type of housing because it doesn't have any, or where? But we need that. Staff is very aware of that.
Hang on one second. Isn't the county doing that right now?
We are currently working on that project.
Yeah.
We've already started on a housing needs analysis
Still want
and
to
a buildable
emphasize
land
it's
inventory
really
as well.
important to back up the equitable housing work. We need that information. Probably secondly, again, the last time the Urban Growth Management Agreement was adopted, I was working for the city. So you know how long ago that was, and that's something that's really needed.
So, yep, we've got, over the 8 years I was on the Planning Commission, we heard multiple times about trees, the mitigation ratios, the annexation and the clear cuts and all that. And so, what we're recommending is that the city come forward with, get together with natural resources and actually come up with a comprehensive tree policy. It's been tried a few times. There's little bits with like heritage tree and all that, but the idea of having, some idea of some sort of look ahead or look back when somebody wants to apply, like Oswego has, where they look back and did you clear cut? You got to wait a while. during the time, the transition between, county and city jurisdiction, that annexation kind of gray zone. And then once they become a city property, there's areas where there's mitigation required, and then there's other areas where they're not. And the idea of some sort of, canopy, general idea. I mean, we're a Tree City USA, and, I've always had trouble with the idea that you just cut down a 100-year-old elm tree and you put up a 3-day-old, oak tree, and it's the same thing. Or you put up 33 little, 1-inch things. It's not the same thing. There is not the same coverage. So I think we should do what we can to encourage old growth. And one of the other things is, as part of that is it's just too easy to just cut down a tree and plant a tree, or say, well, I don't want to plant a tree. Here's a check, city, and then walk away. The streets have 150% of cost policy for when you're paying for street right-of-ways, instead of doing the work yourself if you're delaying it. I think that there should be that same ratio for trees, because, maybe 6 months, a year, 5 years before a mitigated tree is planted. And that is a cost, that is a delay. There is an effect on the city and the city's budget. So we think that should be, it should be an equivalency.
All right, and the second elephant in the room is short-term and vacation rental use. I would like to see people come out of the shadows with this, and if they're going to do something with regard to home away, Airbnb, or a vacation rental, that it be legitimate and above board. I know of a half a dozen in the McLaughlin neighborhood that are operating under the radar, and it would really be nice if there was something that we could do to make it legitimate. I'm sure you've all been reading about all the problems the city of Portland has been having with it, but now they've got more or less a 90% handle on it. And I just think people should not have to be going underground with this. And we also recommended, again, these fees. We've had, for a while there, didn't we have like 4 or 5 bed and breakfasts in town? And then we kind of had none. And we kind of need to look at that again and try to make it a little more accommodating. Probably
And
the other, affordable and accommodating, yeah. And I think the other thing that we, talked about is that just, from time to time, just kind of take a little look back, do a little review that we've done over the last few years. And every year we kind of look at this and the staff goes, oh no, more work. But that keeps us vibrant, keeps the city going, keeps us up with what's going on in other communities. And I think we've got, a great community. We have a lot of work to do, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Good job.
I just want to let the commission know that Nancy I had to go, so she's now gone. She would like to say, she apologizes and to excuse her, please. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any citizen comment beyond what we took already?
Yes.
All right, then I don't even know how to guess.
Yes, we do.
Gifford?
Wait, Damon, do you have, and William Gifford both?
Come on down.
Yeah, you, my dear old friend. What do you want?
Mr. Gifford?
My name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City.
Really?
Mr. Commissioner, or Mr. Who are you? Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners. I attended the Citizen Involvement Committee last Monday?
Monday,
Yes. I occasionally go. It was interesting to see. Again, I thank Commissioner Shaw for all the years he's put in on that. But I was very impressed with the document that was presented by the Transportation Advisory Committee. And I don't know if the City Commission got a copy of this.
haven't seen it.
Well, it's called Oregon City Neighborhood Traffic Fact Sheet, a guide of neighborhood traffic management information and summary of traffic calming devices. And
Scintillating.
it is. Well, traffic is a lot like the weather. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. But traffic Advisory Committee did a really fine job of putting together a lot of information, and I would like to see this more widely distributed. And I don't know if it's available on the city's website. Does anybody know if it is or not?
It is.
It is? Okay. And anyway, I just wanted to give some kudos to the Traffic Advisory Committee. Bob LaSalle gave their report to the CIC, and I was impressed with this. That's
Okay.
all.
So, can you have somebody in the communication staff do a post with the link? And then I'll redistribute it through social media.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mady?
Hi, David Maybe, Oregon City. One quick question. The new park, is it a park or does it have charter protection, or is it?
We passed a resolution, therefore it has charter protection.
Okay, thank you. The other issue actually relates to the mayor's comment about social media. I and several citizens are blocked from the mayor's social media content. I do not see your responses or comments on Oregon City Chit Chat or several others. And I would really, really like to be unblocked. I think it's a violation of public records law that you're making comments that have Dan Holliday mayor in the little picture icon thing. And I don't see them. So I would really like to be part of the community and part of the discussions.
So to be clear, I have two Facebook pages. I have Dan Holliday, Oregon City Mayor, and then I have Dan Holliday. So I don't block or do anything with people that sign up to see Dan Holliday, Oregon City Mayor, but my personal page is my personal page.
I understand that, but there are times when it appears that you are making comments about city business as the mayor on your personal page, and I am unable to see those comments. So I had no problem with you blocking me while we were fighting against each other in the election. Opponents, thank you, that's the word. But it's over tonight. In fact, you're confirming that as part of your consent agenda, and also you're doing part of your consent agenda is about government transparency. So I would just like to be part of any conversations that are in the public.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the agenda's already shot to you-know-where. So where are we?
6B.
I guess we're at 6B, PC 18-158, first reading of ordinance number 18-1031, approving annexation, zone change, and a 3-lot minor petition for .76 acre property located at 14530 South Maple Lane Road. Mr. Way, or is it Mr. Walter?
I'll be giving the report on this. Thank you. This is a proposal for an annexation into the city limit from the urban growth boundary area. It includes a zone change from future urban 10, which is Clackamas County holding zone, to R6 single family residential, and also includes a minor partition request to divide the parcel into 3 lots. This parcel is 3/4 of an acre in size approximately. Planning Commission reviewed it on November 26, recommended approval. This is existing zoning. You can see that the parcel that's outlined in red is surrounded on 3 sides by the city limit, and it's right next to an R6 subdivision that's been developed. And it will include the entirety of the right-of-way of Maple Lane Road when it's annexed.
So when you say include the entirety, that means they're going to have to do a full street improvement?
Well, their street improvement will only have to be on their side of the property. That's what they're required to do under the code. So right now, Clearwater Place has a sidewalk that was constructed with the subdivision there already, but this partition would complete the sidewalk along Maple Lane Road. So there's 3 parcels, one larger one for the existing house, and then one parcel that's about 6,000 square feet, and the other parcel that's right at around 10,347 square feet. And this is a view from Maple Lane Road looking down Clearwater Place left side of the screen and down Maple Lane Road on the right. You can see the sidewalk there, and what would be improved would be the right side of the property there, northern side of the property along Maple Lane Road. There's actually going to be access restrictions on Maple Lane Road, so there'll no longer be a driveway on Maple Lane Road. All of the lots would take their accesses from Clearwater Place. So the approval criteria are included in the code. The annexation code is listed here, and also the zone change criteria and all of the minor partition criteria, which is quite a bit of code. We also checked that the proposition complies with Senate Bill 1573 and does not have to go to a vote of the people because it meets all their criteria. District and boundary changes, it would be removed from the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Enhanced Law Enforcement District and also from the Clackamas River Water District. It remains in Oregon City School District and the Fire District for Clackamas County, and it will be required to annex separately to the Tri-City Sewer Service District. And all of this is mentioned in the ordinance. So with that, staff and the Planning Commission is recommending approval.
Before you open the public hearing, we need to do the 197-763 disclosures. I'll do them quickly because it doesn't look like we have too much public testimony about this.
Right, the applicant and the owner are not here tonight.
Do we have any public testimony? Nope. All right, I'm going to, since we don't have any public testimony, I don't have to give the disclosures to the public, but I do have to ask you all if you have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, or any other declaration to declare.
No, just visited the site.
Nobody has any questions for you all about this, so I will turn it back over to you for any other questions you have for staff.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to testify? None? Then I'll close the public hearing and up for debate.
Would you accept a motion?
I would accept a motion.
Move to approve ordinance number 18-1031.
Second.
Do you have to do anything?
Just read the title.
Go ahead.
Ordinance number 18-1031, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City approving an annexation amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17060220, and amending the official zoning map of the Oregon City Municipal Code from FU10 Future Urban 10 acres to R6 Single Family Dwelling District, and approving a 3-lot minor partition for .76 acres of property identified as Clackamas County Map 3 2A 04DB, tax lot 500.
Okay, and to be clear, this is first reading. Call the roll.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mangelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. Okay. 18567, first reading of ordinance number 18-1027, designated Old Kenema Park as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight before us, we have an ordinance designating Old Kenema Park as a park under our Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10. This has been a park in use for decades. This, again, is one of the requests of the commission to come back and designate all of our parks as charter parks and give them equal protection. Old Kenema Park, again, is in the Kenema neighborhood, and there is one interesting bit of information on this that might be a little different than some of the other parks. In Exhibit A, we do have a sliver of the property, which is between South End Road and Fifth Avenue. That is not included in the park designation that you are voting on tonight. We're only designating the main piece of Old Kenema Park, which has been used as a park under ordinance. With that, I'll open up to any questions. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 18-1027, designating Old Community Park as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Second.
Moved and second, call roll. Oh, sorry, first reading.
Ordinance number 18-1027, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City designating the Old Kenema Park as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg. Aye. Mayor Holliday.
Aye. Okay, under general business, we're back to 7B, 18-503, Resolution 18-34, supporting the National Flood Insurance Program's Community Rating System 2018 recertification for Oregon City. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. So this item probably could have pretty easily gone under consent agenda, but we thought it would be a good item to bring forward to you. We're actually bringing it forward to you because it's a requirement under the federal flood insurance program. And so this resolution really just validates the program that we have. It applies to a pretty small area in Oregon City. There's about 300 properties, just under 300 properties that are in the floodplain, mostly down along 15th and Washington, around the Cove area. There's a map in your packet that kind of shows that area. One of the reasons why I thought it was important to bring it to you is we're one agency that's in the county, the only agency that's in the county that's actually pursuing this discount. And there's a fair amount of work associated with it just to kind of ensure that we get the rating that we get. Property owners do get reduced rates for flood insurance. Right now, we don't have, there's quite a few, back in 96 when the last flood happened, there was a little over 200 folks that made a claim. There's over 300 properties that could qualify for this, but as it stands today, there's only 34 folks that are taking advantage of this program. So we're kind of charged with just letting people know when a building permit comes into that's in the floodplain. The building department's required to notify them of the fact that we have a flood insurance program. So encouraging folks to do that. And I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that nationally there's just a lot of flood damage that occurs. So these programs are really all about getting agencies to do more to make it very, very clear to property owners that are in a floodplain that they're in a floodplain and that they should get insurance. So with that, we just want you to approve the resolution and check that box and we'll move on.
Commissioner Shaw.
Are we involved with the National Flood Insurance Program now?
Yes, we are. We have been for some time.
Okay, and
This is a recertification requirement.
Okay.
It's a new requirement that it comes back to you. That's part of well, there's lots of requirements under this program, and this is one of them that we actually get the governing body's authorization to move forward with it.
Okay.
So a question about a house that might have been flooded with the insurance. Are they required, if they rebuild, to then build to higher standards so they withstand floods more in the future and built on stilts or different construction techniques?
That's true. Yes, they would be required to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Move to approve resolution number 1834, supporting the National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System.
Second.
Discussion, call a roll.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg. Aye. Mayor Holliday.
Aye.
Thank you.
So we're on 18-573, second reading of ordinance number 18-1023, designating Kenema Slope Park as a park under the Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10. You got anything to say about this one?
Not unless you have any questions.
Okay.
Move to approve second reading ordinance number 18-1023, designating Kenema Slope Park as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Second.
Ordinance number 18-1023, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City designating the property identified as Kenema Slope Park as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg. Aye. Mayor Holliday.
Aye. 18-574, second reading of ordinance number 18-1024, designating the Straight Pioneer Cemetery as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Move to approve second reading of ordinance number 18-1024, designating the Straight Pioneer Cemetery as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Second.
Ms. Richter?
Ordinance number 18-1024, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City designating the property known as Straight Pioneer Cemetery as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg.
Aye.
Mayor Holliday.
Aye. 18-575, second reading of ordinance number 18-1026, designated Stafford Park as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Let's see. Move to approve the second reading of ordinance number 18-1026.
Six.
I'm ahead of myself here. 1026, designating Stafford Park as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Second.
Ordinance number 18-1026, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City designating Stafford Park as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. 18-576, second reading of ordinance number 18-1028, designated the Pioneer Community Center as a park under the Oregon City Chapter 10.
Move to approve second reading ordinance number 18-1028, designating the Pioneer Community Center as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Second.
Ordinance number 18-1028, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City designating the property known as the Pioneer Community Center as a park under Oregon City Charter, Chapter 10.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. So we're down to the consent agenda. I want to pull 18-562, the resolution 1843 supporting Clackamas County-wide tobacco retail license. Anybody want to pull anything else?
Nope.
I'd take a motion to take the rest of the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of
18-562.
whatever he said.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
Aye. Okay, so Mr. Conkle? Sir. You're the listed staff member on this.
I get to bring this forward. So we had the Clackamas County Health and Human Services come and give a presentation as it relates to implementing a tobacco retail license fee to be utilized for additional enforcement as well as education to the impacts of smoking, specifically targeting younger children. So the request from the Clackamas County was for a consideration by the commission of a letter of support or a resolution if the commission so chose to support the implementation of the tobacco retail license that would be put in place by the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners.
So I pulled this for a reason of principle more than anything else, and that is that there are times that, government needs to interact or make rules to, whether provide for the safety, security, whatever of the community that they are governing. But very often government vastly overreaches its responsibilities. And to place another tax on our small businesses to do something that, the state is already mandated to do as far as enforcement. They do stings on tobacco sales, just like they do stings on alcohol sales, and just like now they're doing stings on marijuana sales. I see no value in this. It makes no sense to me to add another government program to do something for something that you are going to have zero effect as far as changing behavior is concerned. Ever since I was 10 years old, you could buy cigarettes, you could buy alcohol, and you could buy marijuana if you wanted. It's just a fact. If you go to the high school today and you ask 10 out of 20 kids, all of them will say, yeah, I could get alcohol, or I could get marijuana, or I could get cigarettes if I want them. So adding another tax and a whole other bureaucracy to do this accomplishes nothing except taking money out of the hands of our business owners. So I am absolutely opposed to this. Commissioner Shaw.
So those of us in this room that are parents are probably great parents, but there's kids out in this community that don't have that option probably. And I think they need protection. And I think that if we can provide this type of protection so they don't have that access until they're 21. And if we can save a couple kids from picking up a smoking habit, then I'm for this.
But how does, my question is, how does it do that? How does it accomplish that?
Well, they're not allowed to buy it at the store.
But they're not allowed to buy it at the store now. So taking tax money, taking money out of a business owner's hands to give it to the county to do something that's already illegal just doesn't make any sense to me.
It enforces it, though.
But, all right. I'm a little passionate about this issue.
I know.
So I'll calm down and I'll say this. I have been to numerous stores throughout the community. Every single one of them has one of those little signs up there that says, if you were, born before this date on whatever, you're not allowed to buy cigarettes. Every single one of them asks for ID for anybody who is apparently under 30. I've been ID'd several times myself, and it's pretty apparent that I'm over 21. So I just don't see, none of the things that folks came and testified convinced me that it made any more sense to give another chunk of money to the county, that they were going to actually accomplish anything with it. That's the end of the day. I don't want kids starting to smoke. I don't want kids starting to drink. But the fact is that taking money out of the business owner's hands to give to the county, to hire somebody else to sit around and push papers or put out tweets, isn't gonna take care of the problem. That's all I got to say. Is there a motion?
Let's see. Move to approve Resolution 18-43, supporting the Clackamas County-wide Teco retail license.
Second. Call a roll.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Aye.
Mayor Holliday?
No. Mr. Manager, you got anything for us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We'll start with an update from Mr. Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Conco. Just wanted to announce to the commission that this Friday, December 7th, Business Oregon will be having their commission meeting at the Industrial Technical Center. And in the morning, in the first part of the meeting, they're wanting to highlight the Beaver Creek Industrial Area.
Yes.
So we're giving a presentation along with our partners in Clackamas County and the Community College about the Beaver Creek employment area. So I invite you to come. It's from 11 to 1 on Friday.
Nothing else to share with us?
It's not mine.
Maybe next meeting.
Okay.
Next, an update from Mr. John Lewis.
Just two quick things, some good news related to transportation. So you may remember we brought you the alternate mobility target discussion, and you authorized that and approved that. So we've made some changes to the city code, the Oregon Highway, OTC, Oregon Transportation Commission approved the alternate mobility target. So we're on board there. That means that development in the Beaver Creek Road area that was held up by that decision is now has the opportunity to submit and be approved. From our perspective in the Public Works Department, there was with the study and the new standards, there was also some projects that were listed. One of them is the free-flowing right turn lane from Beaver Creek Road onto 213. And the next step for us is to try and get some concepts to kind of confirm the design work so that if we need to, we can acquire or require future development to provide right-of-way for that project, and also do a better job of detailing the amount of cost of that project so that if grant opportunities come up, we'll have something more like a 30% design. So don't have a specific timeline on it, but that's kind of what our thoughts are on how to proceed with that. So just wanted you to know about that. The other thing is we'd heard through Transportation Advisory Committee about a desire to see a speed zone change out on Central Point Road. And so this is the first time we went out and actually did a survey. That's part of the requirements of that, to get some community feedback. So we did an online survey and we got a lot of feedback about what folks wanted to see for speed limit out there. So we pursued that and the state granted that. So it'll be 35 mile an hour speed zone on Central Point Road from the city limits to the intersection there. And Amherst. So, yeah, so that's good news. And we'll be posting that pretty shortly. We've got the signs already for that, and it should be up. And we'll be getting that information back out to all those folks that provided feedback as well. So, yeah, that's good news.
Thank you.
And last, so we're not having a work session, so our next meeting will be December 19th, 2 weeks from tonight. We're going to have just a little farewell thank you for Commissioner Mengelberg and Commissioner Shaw for their years of service as a commissioner for the city. So we're hoping to do that before the commission meeting. There'll be more, the exact times will be coming. We're doing a little, trying to figure out if we have an urban renewal commission meeting or not before the city commission, but so be on the lookout for that. But just want to have the opportunity to say thank you for all the hours and effort and time that you've put in representing the city and its citizens. That's all I have tonight.
Okay. Anything from Commissioner Shaw, you got anything?
Yeah, first, I've been a little late, remiss in getting this to Mr. John Lewis, but this is from the League of Oregon Cities for our Silver Safety Award to the City of Oregon City for injury frequency rate of 1.77 in the year 17-18 with 161 full-time employees. So wanted to give this to you.
So, I gotta ask why we can never get a gold safety award.
Jeez, here, Katie, I get to give him an award.
Hey, Chief, why is it we can never get a gold safety award?
This is my
Military silver's better than gold.
No, this is fine right here.
I love that answer.
This is great. You can let go anytime. Got the whip.
This is great, but I have nowhere near 161 full-time employees, so I just have to acknowledge, I think some of that belongs to others too.
Yeah, some of it does belong to others.
Thank you.
And the other, there you go. See, that's going down in history there for you. So the last thing was that it's too bad Mr. Parno's not here, but he gave me a little tour of South Fork Water Board's project up there with the leak, and on Friday. So former leak, yeah. They were still working up there Friday. So I appreciated him doing that, and he's just doing a great job in taking Mr. Collins' place there temporarily till Mr. Collins gets back on his feet. That's all. Thanks.
I don't know if we ever actually announced that in public, did we? Mr. Parno, our finance director.
Did South Fork announce that?
Huh? I don't think so. He's taking over temporarily. Our general manager, John Collins, has some health issues, and so Mr. Parno is being the acting managing director of South Fork Water Board while that's going on. I don't think I have anything either. It's been kind of a light month this month, so we'll be looking forward to the last meeting in December and then moving on to the new year. So with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.